Welcome to Creating the Muse podcast, brought to you by Indah Pages. This is a space where creativity takes center stage and entrepreneurship becomes an art form. Join us as we dive into the stories of visionary individuals who have harnessed their inner muse to build thriving businesses and craft lives of passion and purpose. Welcome everyone to another episode of Creating the Muse. I'm your host, Indiana Holly, and today we're immersing ourselves in the world of sustainable living and design, led by an exceptional building designer, Elise Sorge. However, Elise isn't your average building designer. She stands as an esteemed professional, adorned with multiple awards and driven by a profound commitment to weave humanity and nature into architectural design. Her creations transcend mere structures. They are living sanctuaries that nurture well-being and evoke a profound sense of balance. Without further ado, let's extend a warm welcome to Elise. Elise, welcome.
Thank you. I'm just going to carry you around in my pocket and have you speak on my behalf whenever I'm introduced. That was really
How nice with that. It's always so much easier to do it for somebody else than it is to do it for yourself. So
absolutely. Yeah.
And did I pronounce your surname correctly?
Yes.
It's Italian, yes? Is it that the
I know the answer to this. My husband will kill me. No, it's oh gosh. Somewhere European.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Good answer.
I want to say Czechoslovakia, but I don't.
Wow, yeah.
I think there's two that sound similar, and it's the other one maybe.
Oh, that's good to hear. I was going to ask you before I hit record, did I say, is this correctly? So I'm glad I
yeah.
did. So. Oh, look, I am so excited to be able to interview you. I have a bit of a backstory. I think I found you in Facebook, I think it was, when Samantha Wills, or Instagram, which you said, show all the love and share all your Instagram posts of what you do. And then I found you through there. And then I think I just totally fell in love with your aesthetic, what you do, because building design, I had no idea about at all. And the fact that you were a woman in this field. And then I think I reached out to you and I said, oh my God, what jeans? Where did you get your jeans from?
That's right. Yeah.
I just fell in love with your photos so much. So it's just so nice to be able to have you here and be able to have this conversation with you and delve into a world that I would literally have no idea about. So can you start off by telling us what intrigued you into building design? It's so exciting.
Yeah, that's I feel like this will be the answer with everything, but it's a bit of a windy path. I certainly didn't think as a kid, oh, I want to be a building designer. I didn't even know what one was. I think I've kind of throughout my career just fallen into things, and I've bit by bit pieced together what parts light me up, and that has mostly been in the digital space. So I left school and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I went to university. Yep. With all that pressure of people saying that you need to know what you want to do, which
I
is
know.
yeah. I don't even know what the world is. But yeah, so I stumbled into uni. I didn't even know that you had to register for your courses. So I just got lumped with, the leftovers basically. But one of the courses was psychology, which was the only thing I was really interested in.
Yeah.
But I lasted a term and I was like, this is just not practical because I don't know what I want to do. And I'm going to do this 4-year degree.
Huge commitment. Yeah.
Pay all this money. And what am I going to do at the end of it? So I left and studied music at TAFE for 6 months.
Oh, I love that. Such a creative. All right.
Yeah, but it's funny. I didn't think I was a creative at all. I had literally said several times, I don't have a creative bone in my body, which is quite funny now. But it's interesting how your perception of what creativity is can get really stuck.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't know where that came from. Maybe I drew a picture that was garbage because I'm terrible at at drawing
It's the
with my
crafty stuff.
hands.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
crafty stuff. I was like, I can't sew, I can't do this. So I'm clearly not creative because I
that's
can't
right.
draw. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. So there have been all of these little hints along the way. Um, I did that music course. It wasn't anything particularly serious, but I just wanted to follow my interest. So that was the first little hint. Then I went and did a tourism course. I had a goal. I wanted to work for Qantas, um, and managed to get a job at Qantas Holidays. And what I loved about the tourism industry was it is a really creative industry. It's all of that, all that travel imagery and
Oh, the marketing.
or like holiday packages. I mean, I wasn't creating them, I was in the digital team, but yeah, it's just the experience, the customer experience and the customer journey I find really intriguing as well. And I think that's where the creativity and the psychology kind of start to meld together. And then I drifted more and more into digital production. I worked for small businesses, large businesses, and what really drove me is the human behavior aspect of it. So how people interact with websites, the psychology behind it.
Wow.
When you have a particular wording on a page, how people react,
Mm.
testing those things out, and just the layout of the page, the usability, accessibility of websites and things like that. I find really interesting because you go in with a whole bunch of assumptions and you think, oh, this will be so obvious. And then you test with real people and you see,
Mm.
oh, wow, I didn't even think of that. And you just come into it, you get a bit humbled and you learn a lot about how people think. Um, but yeah, I think I got to a point where I just kind of fell out of love with that. And
Mm.
I had two kids. So I had a baby at home and a 3-year-old, and my dad had passed away and both my grandparents in a really short period of time. And I don't know, it just really shook me up. I went back to
Mm.
work after my second maternity leave, and there was a lot of disruption at work. There was a lot of people that weren't happy, and we all know how that can breed, I wouldn't say toxicity in a
Oh,
team. It's
energy
the people
hygiene. It rubs off
yeah,
on you. Yeah.
yeah, the people, it wasn't the people themselves, it was just the environment that was thrown at us. And so all of that combined,
It's a
it just,
lot.
yeah, it was just
Yeah.
like,
Upheaval. You literally rooted
something's
out of
got
the
to give.
ground and yeah.
Yeah. And so I think in amongst all of that, so leading up to that, my mum has always been into renovating, and she's done lots of renovations, and we built a house when I was young. And so watching her kind of go through that, and we had bought our first place, a townhouse, and we renovated that, and then watched mum flip her first property
That's
and got
so
involved there.
exciting.
And
Oh my
yeah, but I
God.
think um, when I got married, that was really the pivotal point where we didn't have a lot of money, so I DIY'd basically everything. And I think that was that moment where my creativity really had time to come forward and
Yeah.
explode.
Because it had
And
to. Yeah.
it had to,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's when I realized, oh, maybe I am creative. Maybe I can do this. And that experience for me of putting meaning into everything. So from create, obviously the theme itself, the location, all of those obvious things, but down to the details of how we named the tables and how they were significant to us and
Ah,
our journey together. And
wow.
a bit of a backstory on that. Having music there, so I maybe illegally, don't tell anyone, downloaded videos from YouTube, and this was like 2013, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
figured that out in a bit of a dodgy way. But I found like the artists that we really liked and their acoustic versions. So there were some really beautiful clips of, like someone playing acoustically guitar, and I had that on the screen, and then you would hear that. So it almost felt like they were there playing. So you walk in and you've got, you know, the sound experience, you've got the visual experience, and then, you know, you've got the menus and the meal itself. Like, just, I think bringing all of that together was so much fun, and it just sparked something in me. And then, you know, the people at the venue were like, you should do this. And I had been made redundant a couple of months before that and hadn't found work. So I was like, well, I've got all the stuff, so okay, why not just give that a go? And I did wedding styling for 2 years, and then yeah, I went back to a digital role. And yeah, so I think those were all of the sorry, I've lost track of what I was saying because there's so many bits and pieces. But the building design really came through. It was funny because my mum had bought a cottage in Thirroul, which is not too far from where I live. And she had gone through the process of extending and renovating, and she used a building designer for that. And I went through that process with her, and I had a baby, so I was more like coming on side, and she would bounce ideas off me, and that was really fun. But then all of a sudden, it was like building design just kept being thrown at me out of nowhere.
Showing up. Yeah.
Yeah,
That whole concept of what's meant for you won't miss you by, like
that's
literally
right.
in your face, in
And
your
when the
face.
timing's
Yeah.
right,
Yes, it'll unfold.
yeah.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was like, how did I not look at this before? This is so obvious. And it was like one thing after another. Like, I'd open up Facebook and there would be a post. Like, I joined the first class of Three Birds Renovations Reno School.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
all of a sudden there was an influx of all these things about building designers and blah, blah, blah. And I was
Wow.
like, of course.
Oh,
Where have you been all my life? And I had done an interior design certificate as well. And yeah, so
it's that
that
whole
was,
concept of the whole journey. You can't see it until you look back, and then you see the steps,
that's
like
right.
everything from industry and tourism and wedding design and the emotive stuff that you learnt about,
Yeah,
the marketing side of things, and
yeah,
it weaving that into it. It makes complete sense listening to your journey, but I guess going through it,
yeah,
it does, the dots aren't connected, so you can't see it until the universe starts showing up, like you said, and it's like bang, bang,
yeah,
bang, here it is now, you're on the path.
that's
So
right. And
wow.
it can feel really, you can feel a bit lost
Oh
when
God,
it's
yeah.
like, oh, I'm trying this and now I'm trying that. And, you know, people might think you're a bit flaky and, oh, you know, weren't you doing this like recently and blah, blah, blah. But when you can see the through line with everything, there's usually a common thing that weaves through all of those different things that you're exploring. And I think giving yourself space to explore all of that and weave out and pick out all the pieces that, no, this part lights me up, this part doesn't, this is really exciting, this is really draining, and
Mm.
molding that and just taking that time. Like, this is, you know, my wedding was over 10 years ago, so it's a long process, or for me anyway. Maybe it's not for everyone else, but
Oh, no, I can
yeah,
totally relate. It's the same thing, and I've tried several different things on. And with creativity, it's not linear. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Creativity is finding your inspiration and trying things on instead
yeah,
of playing it safe. So you saying that concept, I've had that thrown at me, the flaky concept or
yeah,
scattered, and it's like, but who says that's the case? Like when you're multifaceted creative,
right,
you
yeah,
have to try it on and taste it and test it and feel it and
yeah,
then roll with it. So I can totally relate.
yeah. And I think when you approach it in that way, you bring to the table such a unique set of skills and such a unique flavor on whatever it is that you're pursuing. And you know, I just think that's such a value add. And I had a mentor recently who, I think it was the first time that anyone had really said that to me in this way, because the message seems to consistently be like, you know, pick what you want to do and be consistent with that, and stay, you know, stay the course. And maybe you can have one big change,
Mm,
and that's kind of acceptable. But, she really said that, I mean, her way of putting it was staying in a job for more than 3 years is problematic, because you become complacent. And I
I
think,
I disagree. I think you become stale and
oh yeah, exactly.
and you've
Exactly.
learnt everything and you want to grow and
That's right.
adapt and yeah. So
That
isn't that
that was her
interesting?
message. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, she's in a employed job. So that wasn't like your typical entrepreneurial kind of message.
Mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
really shifted a lot for me as well. Yeah.
Oh my God, what a journey. It's so
Yeah.
beautifully. And it's in everything that you do, Elise. Like I noticed even when you went on holidays recently and you think about things in your zone of genius. So I would never go to a hotel and be like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. But you thought of it in terms of very much I think it's like the blue zones, Okinawa, the university was built in a certain way, which worked with the ecology next to the
Mm.
ocean. So, and I felt there was an element of that with the hotel that you stayed at. So
Yeah.
you really think about it from a structural, not just a structural point of view, but from how it impacts you
Yeah.
on a massive level. So can you tell me about the excitement that was behind staying in this hotel and why it excited you?
That's a really good question. It felt like, I'm gonna try and not edit what I'm saying, because then I
Go
bugger
with the
myself.
flow. Yeah.
Yeah. It felt like all of my worlds collided in that moment. And
As in stopped?
I'm not
Paused
I
or
think I think it's all the aspects that I love all came together in that
wow.
moment.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain what's in my brain, um, in words, but I think starting off in travel and tourism and the love of that,
Mm,
the experience, the storytelling is really important behind anything, um, and then design, obviously, in
mm,
itself, and and also seeing somewhere where they've really thought about the sustainability and the impact of their resort on the island that they're on, both on the environment but also on the local people. Um, it felt like I'd been really drained for a long time and I was really burnt out. And going there just reignited all of those things in one place
wow.
that I really love. So
Wow.
I think it just gave me that energy back. But also I just I have um I have high expectations in the way that, I don't know, when you see something that could be incredible and it could just be one little thing, and
Mm,
if it's not done, it's so frustrating. It's not like, oh, well, I want blah, blah, blah. And because, not in a kind of diva way, but just seeing the potential in something and having it not meet the potential is
mm.
incredibly
It's such a
frustrating.
shame.
It's a
Yeah.
shame. So
Yeah.
the first hotel that we stayed at, and I lowered my expectations given the price point. I was like, okay, it's not going to be, what I'm hoping the other place will be. And it was beautiful. We had a great time. So it is important to have your expectations at the right level. But, I walked into that room and I was like, cool, that is what I was expecting. But then I took a photo, I think it was in the morning, just the way that, like, the room kind of next door hung over the cliff, and they
Mm,
had the finish on the exterior of the wall was like a kind of stucco facade. So it looked almost like it was trying to blend into the rocky landscape, except it was a very square, jagged thing. And I was like, if they took that and really ran with it and brought that inside, like it was all a bit brown, like, but not in a good way, like just some fresh paint would have made the world of difference. Like it was, I could see where it could have gone. Like it could have been this amazing, like, just not quite, not fully blending in, but just this calm, like blending into the landscape, sort of raw textures, raw materials, some greenery inside. It's like, it doesn't necessarily have to be this big deal. And I'm like, oh, you've just kind of let it down, like with this brown paint. And what are these curtains? Like, if you just switch them out for something that doesn't have a weird sheen on it, it would have just tweaked that experience. So
Mm.
that's where, you know, leading up to, so we stayed at the Anantara in Koh Yao Yai in Thailand, which is brand new. So I got a ridiculous deal. I really hope I can find that deal again. I'm not sure I will.
It just means it was meant to be.
It was meant to be.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, please, please live up to what I want it to be. And it was so much more.
Wow.
And just when you arrive, the way that the staff addressed, the way that they address you, it was raining, they have umbrellas. It's the little things that count. It's not the big
Mm.
flashy things. And then leading up, like the lobby was just so incredibly beautiful. It just opened up that experience in that moment. Like they've really, I think what matters is knowing that they've thought about those details. And
Mm.
when you can see, oh, you know, they've come and cleaned the room, but they haven't, you know, done this little bit. It's not that, oh, I'm just picking because you should be cleaning my room. It's like, no, you want someone that really cares. And you
Mm.
can tell
Oh
when they
God,
care
yeah.
when they do those details. So yeah, it was like beyond anything I could imagine. And the storytelling, we met the general manager, and he, you know, said about the owner who's a local, and that in itself was reassuring because it's a big brand. But you know, that he was inspired by the Hobbit huts in New Zealand. And so
Wow.
then, you know, they have
Wow.
these villas that are like built into the landscape, and they've got, you know, the lawn covers them, you can't even see them from behind. And that they've got, they're harvesting all the rainwater, and they're hoping that will last them through the dry season, and they're going to be bottling their own water. And yeah, just all of that together, I think, makes such a huge difference to the whole experience. So it's not just about having a beautiful design. It's not just about, you know, having a room that's really, really pretty. I think all of those sustainability aspects really ground the entire resort. And
Mm.
that's what's really nurturing. So when you
Mm.
go there, you might not be aware of those things, but there's just a feeling that you get,
The energetics
the
behind it.
energetics behind it. Yeah.
It's like the whole things crafted with such quality and care. So it can be anything from a croissant through to
Yeah.
handmade food, anything that's artisan. It's just the care, the level of detail.
Yeah.
And I love when you were speaking, I guess that's the energy that you find behind it, where everything at the finer detail is just so significant and so impactful and important. Clearly, you needed to be there for a specific reason to fill your creativity cup up. But
Yeah.
just the thought that when you're talking about how the structure hung over the cliff, and it's not that that's kind of speaking more to your zone of genius. It's like, oh, you just want it to be just that little bit more because you know it could be brilliant. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. But
Oh,
even like the, it's funny the things that stick out from an experience. But it's, I mean, like the building itself, the room itself was so beautifully designed, and it was minimal. So it didn't have to be, you know, marble everywhere. There wasn't any of
no,
that. It was just done in such a beautiful, tasteful way that felt so calming and relaxing. But the things that got me really excited beyond that, um, like in the bath, they had these little, not plastic containers, like they're proper ceramic little jars, and they had bath salts, but they had like ylang ylang, and
mm, I
they
love
weren't
that
tight
name.
on it. They were really fragrant.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, oh, like those are the things that leave you with the impact. I was surprised that they weren't selling them in the gift shop, because I'm like, oh, that would be the
They
perfect thing to
must.
take home. And then you can recreate that at home in your own bathroom
Oh God,
and close
yeah.
your eyes and you're
You
back
need to
there. I'm like,
send that
oh,
as a
there's a missed
feedback.
opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Hence the entrepreneurial mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
I did
God.
buy the resort bag, but you know.
I'm so happy to hear that you had the most magnificent time because I know that you said you're a mother of two, you
Yeah,
work full time, you have your beautiful studio of House of Harmonia. Harmonia, is that correct? Correct? Harmonia,
yeah,
did I say that? Um, and I think in a recent post I had said to you also, I had posted something about burnout and trying to do things at the change my patterns, my behavioral patterns, because at the end of the year, so I usually get to, push, 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 and then I fall into a heat. And you had raised something that you have learned, that was you last year, and that you have learned to tap into creativity as your source of energy, which sounds like this holiday was that. It was
yeah,
really igniting and just turning on all the sparks within you and expanding you to bring it all in. So I'd love to
yeah.
tap into that concept of how you actually do. Is it the flow? Is it the creativity? What is it that helps you bring you back to yourself?
I think it's definitely something I'm still learning because my nature is to push, 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 and then
Same. Yeah.
keep pushing and pushing and pushing. Um, and I said to someone who knows me quite well, not that long ago, I said, it's like I don't see the wall coming until I run right
Smash into
into it.
it. Yeah.
And she's like, no, 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 you see the wall. You
Oh,
just say a big fuck you to
ouch.
the wall,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
just going to keep going anyway. And I was like, oh, you really, that's right. That's
Oof.
actually how I do it. So
Yeah.
I think it's still an ongoing lesson in recognizing the signs when I'm starting to get stressed and overwhelmed, when things are starting to fall apart a little bit at the seams. If you start getting a bit grumpy, if my brain's getting a bit scattered, those are my signals. Actually, one of my signals I've learned is how many tabs I have open on my browser on my
Oh
phone.
my God, no, really?
Yeah.
Ouch. That was a
Seems to be
huge one
quite
for me.
quite the indication. I may have been over 100. Um,
No way.
I'm currently at 75, so that's a
Wow. Is
signal.
that because you're creative and things inspiring you, leave them open because they're
Yeah,
not because they're undone, but because you don't want to forget about it and you want to go back to it? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. I also have ADHD, so it's like I will forget, and so I have to leave all the tabs open so
Yeah.
I not
So you
forget.
don't forget. Yeah.
Yeah, but of course I forget because who can remember 75 to 100 tabs? Um, yeah, I think what I've learned, and just through, you know, years of therapy and looking into trying to work
Why?
out who I am and what it is that I wanted to do, it's been a process of, even with my business, which I have taken quite an extended break from. I've only had a really limited number of clients recently, and it's working out what are the pieces that give me energy and what are the pieces that drain my energy, and it's making sure that that balance is right. And I haven't figured that out quite yet, but I know that things that really drain me are, I think, being around people too much. So if I had to go back to my life when I was going to the city every day and being in an office and being around all those people on the
Did you
train,
do that?
that I don't know.
I have no
I don't
idea.
know.
But in saying that, I used to take a lot of time off, like I'd be wiped out for a whole week.
Yeah,
And every now and then, now I barely ever take time off. So,
yeah,
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 yeah.
exactly. So I think it's things like that, knowing that I get my energy, I recharge by being alone, but not being alone for too long. But being alone as a mum is very difficult. So it's having that. It's also, things that drain me are just, I think, your spreadsheets, lots of text on a page, things like that. When people
Mm.
are firing things randomly, like this has to be done now, and blah, 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 blah. And so it's taking back control and breathing. I think for me, grounding is really, really important. That's the number one thing that I need to do. It's the number one thing that I don't do. um, I have a lot of air in my natal chart, if you're interested in astrology. So it's very easy for me to kind of fly off into the ethers. So I
Yeah,
have to make
yeah.
a conscious effort to ground, but that's what I crave. And so that's why, in my design, I want to design places that are grounding and feel nurturing, because that's what I
Nature.
really need.
Yeah.
So I think things that I I get energy from is being creative. So I don't know, I'll see random things and think, oh, I can do that. Like there was some type of artwork, and I've never been good at art, but I thought, no, that looks easy. I'm going to do that. So when I bought all the things and with my kids, we had a go at doing this plaster artwork, which I still want to do because it's relaxing. It's that process.
Mm.
Or, I making cakes. I don't do that much anymore, but like the decorating, it's that process of where I think it's where I can completely hyper focus on what I'm doing, and it just excludes everything else, and I can
Yeah,
just create, and
that's
I
the
can go
flow.
into that little world.
Yeah.
That's really
Where
important. So
time doesn't matter. Isn't it
that's
funny? You
right.
can be at work for 8 hours and it can drain you, but you
Yeah,
can be working in that space that you were
yeah.
talking for 8, 9, 10 hours and still come out and just be like, whew, yeah, I can go again.
For me though, there's a tipping point.
Oh, you do end up, yeah.
It can turn into overwhelm if
Oh,
I'm too locked in. It's
yeah,
almost
yeah.
like, yeah, it's this fine line of learning when to draw the line. So if I'm designing a concept, for example, there's a billion ways that you can do a floor plan. And no matter how many times you do it, there's always a different way to do it. There's no right or wrong. Oh, well, there could be a wrong for sure, but it's knowing when to stop. Have I satisfied everything on the brief? Have I delivered that? And have I delivered it in a way that meets, all of their needs and my own principles? And stopping there, and
Mm,
not perfecting it. It's when it
mm,
clicks over into perfectionism,
yeah.
that's when you've
That's
stopped
when you
being
lose it.
creative.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're not in the inspiration anymore. You're in perfectionism, and that's when it tips over into anxiety and overwhelm.
yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
hard to
I
come
can
back from
relate.
that. So it's finding that line and stopping just before there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
I've
yeah, I
had
mean,
a business coach say to me, which really resonated with me because I'm similar to you, suffer from perfectionism.
yeah,
And that's a terrible word, suffer. I shouldn't say that. Um,
would say suffer.
but
Feels
she
like it.
said something about having an 80-20 rule because I
Yeah,
feel that when you're a perfectionist, our 100% and if not more is probably everybody else's 25%. So
yeah,
I think that's where the level of burnout. So if I give myself that cap of saying, you know what, it's not the 100%, it's the 80-20 rule, where
yeah,
20% can be not so perfect, it still ends up being extraordinary. There wouldn't be any work that I would put out in the world that didn't,
yeah,
but it alleviates some of that pressure to not have to just keep going and striving to the point
yeah,
where you start to tether.
yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
I mean, I would argue as well. I don't know, like perfectionism is what it's called, but you're not actually creating perfection. So
No, because
knowing
there's
when to stop and thinking, oh, I'm being a perfectionist, I need to stop. It's actually hard to stop when you go, I'm being a perfectionist, I should stop now. It's like, but I want it to be perfect. So why would I stop? You know what I mean? It's almost like we need to rename it because it doesn't make it perfect. Like
no,
for me,
you over
I,
engineer it.
you over engineer it.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the funny thing is you're talking about really loving the craft side of thing, like you were talking about the
Yeah.
wood and the knots in the wood and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That is imperfection, which
That's
is what
right.
makes it perfect. So we really do need to call it something else. So wow. I love that. And I love that you're getting your kids involved. So, especially because I don't know, from my generation, it was very much, and there was a post recently that I reposted something about creativity not being at the forefront. It's kind of like, you got to do math and science and stuff like that in school, and creativity is like something you do on the side. It
Yeah.
doesn't have the credibility that it desire. So I love hearing that you are taking your children on the journey with you and experiencing that creativity, regardless of if it's you're brilliant at it or not. I suck at pottery, but I love it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying, yeah, you suck at pottery. I don't know. I'm agreeing.
You probably, if you saw it, you go, yeah, you suck at pottery.
I love when you feel like I really nailed that. And then like a little while down the track, you go, oh wow,
Oh, that was really
I really
bad.
didn't. I really didn't, but you know, in
Especially
that
as you
moment,
evolve and grow. It's like
yeah,
something like I wrote, say, like 10 years ago, and I was like, yeah, I nailed that. And then I go back and read it, and I'm like, what is that?
yeah,
But you got to start somewhere. Do you
that's
know what I
right.
mean? So,
That's right.
yeah, it was important
Exactly.
to me then. So, oh, wow. So, hey, tell me about House of Harmonia. I was just Instagram stalking you. I went through the Oxley Road. You can definitely see your level of detail in everything that you do, from even behind you right now, from what you hang on the walls to what you wear to how, like, I love that you said you did wedding planning and those tables and the centerpieces. Like, House of Harmonia actually must be the seamless integration of design and nature all coming into one. So I'd love for you to talk about, is that House of Harmonia, is that where that underlying principle falls from, or?
Yeah, I think it really came from needing that sense of groundedness for myself and harmony. And yeah, like coming up with that name was quite an experience. And that was with the Samantha Wills branding masterclass.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a really good example about that urge to push, push, push and force something to come through. And it wasn't until I just said, it was, I think it was during lockdown or not long after lockdown that I did that. And I had to stop taking clients because I had my kids at home and it was just, you know, the whole world was upside down. And I thought, I'm just going to let it be whatever it wants to be. And I don't have to go with it, but let's just do this exercise and see what comes through. And when it was, that just kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, not out of nowhere, like there was a whole thing that led up to
Yeah,
it.
yeah, of
That
course.
moment when it came through, it was like, where did that come from?
Yeah, love that.
And I was like, I love that. And I'm not sure exactly why. And then I looked into what is harmonia, and that it's the goddess of harmony, the Greek goddess of
Wow,
harmony.
I love
And
that.
another word that I can't remember, but the harmony part is the important part. Um, and then it was ages after that that I realized, oh yeah, like I'm a Libra. And that's the whole thing with Libras, is finding harmony and balance.
Mm,
And that's what I really crave for myself. And I think having that underpinning my work and having that, I haven't fully come out with the branding yet, but transitioning over to that just to really set the scene that that's what's really important to me. So when I'm designing, I want to know what you need in your home to feel really safe and grounded and nurtured. So
mm,
it's designing in a way that kind of, well, it's harmonious, obviously,
yeah.
but where it feels seamless. So it's not too over the top. It's just kind of subtle. Like I'm working on a project at the moment, um, which will hopefully start getting built not too far away. But it's like just putting a subtle curve, not for the sake of, because curves are cool, but with purpose. So everything
Mm,
having a purpose, and that because it needed it in that space because of the way that the hallway is going, just to kind of make it less rigid energetically. So when you walk through, it's just kind of softening the way.
flowy and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
very
it's those,
feminine.
yeah, so subtleties. I want people to walk in and not necessarily know, oh, I love this because look at that cool thing, or I just want them to feel a
Yeah,
certain way. I want them
yeah.
to feel calm. I want them to feel relaxed and safe and see nature, because that's how, you know, we reconnect, through plants and being able to see outside, making sure that we've got the sun coming in the right aspects for the, you know, at the right times of day. That's important for your circadian rhythm and for sleep. And also, like, who the hell wants to be in a dark space? It's
Oh
awful.
God, no,
I'm
no.
so
Yeah,
sensitive to light.
Yeah.
I cannot work in a dark, dingy space. I don't want to live in a dark, dingy space. And it's that creativity. It's like solving the puzzle of, well, the orientation of this block might not be ideal, but how can we bring that light in where we need it in a way that's not, ridiculous. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I
That,
think overall it's not necessarily, for me, it's designing for sustainability, but through the lens of your own personal well-being. So I know that for me to feel healthy and grounded and relaxed and calm, I need to have, you know, access to natural materials. And it doesn't have to be, it's that whole thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be everything. I mean, it would be
mm.
great if it could be, but that's not achievable for most people necessarily. It's being able to have a plant in a certain place or a window with where you can see the garden. It's those things that don't necessarily cost extra money that can really impact on your mental health and your well-being. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I just that beautiful peacock chair that you have, the 70s chair that you've got, and I was like, I could just see myself sitting there in a sun-filled window and
yeah,
just carving out some space with a like a heavy ceramic cup of
yeah,
cacao and just sitting there and sipping it.
yes,
And that in itself is therapy. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? So,
absolutely.
and
Yeah,
I feel like it's when I'm listening to you talk, it's as though like you're bringing in nature and working with the ecosystem, but you're also it feels like you're taking somebody's DNA and embedding that into the actual embodiment of the structure of the home. So, I mean, what a far cry from high density housing. It
I know.
is such a niche, isn't it? Like it's not the norm. I know there's architects out there and they are so passionate about their art, but I personally haven't heard about it in the way that you articulate it. So it's just so beautiful to hear
I
from
think
that.
even though, like, even with, I mean, I don't do high density, but for my diploma, I had to do apartments, and it was designing it in the way that each apartment was unique and it was oriented in the right way, so they all captured the northern sun, but they all had rooftop gardens. So if you're on the
Oh,
ground
I
floor, you
love
had
that.
your own beautiful garden space, but even on the first floor, you had an extensive garden with a roof garden. So that's not just for the sustainability aspects. Obviously, you can harvest that rainwater. It's insulating properties for the building itself when you've got a garden on top of it. But then for the people, you might be up above, like you're not on the ground floor, you're on the first floor, but you still have a garden to walk out into. You still have a tree
Yeah.
that you can see. You're still getting the shade from that. You're still getting the bugs and the birds and all of
Yeah.
that life that's being brought in, even though you're higher up. And I've seen it done beautifully in high rises. I mean, we were in Singapore for one night. That's a really good example of, how they're using biophilic design in their high rises. I mean, they don't have the luxury of space. So you have to get creative and how can I bring nature into this high density kind of environment? And yeah, I think that's part of the
It's
fun is the challenge.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's even I make jokes about, the apocalyptic movies and how I find so much beauty and how something, concrete cement buildings and then it's just covered in vines, like the
Yes.
nature's
I
just
love that.
overtaken it all. And I
Yeah.
find the beauty in zombie movies over that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then now that we're trying to do that, even in the city now here in Brizzy, you can see some of the buildings have all these ferns on the outside that just make it feel less
Yeah.
concrete and more connected to nature. And like you said, it's the small things, even just having some rosemary on your balcony so that the bees can come and say hello.
Yeah.
Like it just, yeah, it's so important.
Absolutely.
Oh, what a beautiful conversation this is. I'm aware of time, so I just have a couple of rapid fire questions to ask you. But before we do that, looking into the future,
Mm.
how do you see sustainable building design and what advice can you give to others to stay at the forefront of developing such practice that you've spoken about?
In their own home, do you mean?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
That's a really good question because there's so
It's so
many
much
things, and
that
it
you
can
can
feel,
do.
yeah, it can feel really overwhelming. I think there's different ways to look at it. So if you're not looking to rebuild, you're not looking to renovate, because there would be two aspects of it. Say you can't really do anything at all. There's things such as the type of paint that you choose. So
Wow.
there are some
Okay.
really beautiful, I mean, you have to look at, like if you've got a family and kids, you've got to see, is it going to be easily wipeable? Because,
Yes,
oh
of
God,
course. It needs to be
walls at the
practical
moment.
as well.
But
Yeah.
there are some like really beautiful paints, like Bowork paints that are lime-based natural paints that have such a beautiful, rich texture. Even just having one space where you have a beautiful paint like that, where it's a natural, organic based thing, but it's not going to cost you the earth. It's things like that. It could be even just putting a pot plant, having linen curtains, things like that. So
Beautiful.
they're the little things that you can do. I think if you're doing a renovation, which are my favorites, so my favorite projects and what I'll be focusing a lot more on is smaller scale, single story, usually renovations and extensions. So what you need to look at, the most important thing is looking at and getting familiar with the orientation of your site. And when you're doing an extension, making sure that you're getting the light into the building at the
Oh, of
right time,
course. Yeah,
right
yeah.
from the right aspect at the right times of day, and you're shading where it needs to be shaded, like from the west, and depending on your climate zone, that makes a difference as well. The materials that you choose can be really important. So for example, with exterior cladding, there's a product, a company called WeatherTex. They do cladding similar, like everyone knows about James Hardy, that's fiber cement, but WeatherTex uses natural wood and beeswax, and their
Wow.
pricing is usually on par.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you can get
Wow. There you
similar
go.
effect with a much more sustainable natural material.
Yeah, definitely. I
Um,
mean, just imagine just being able to smell beeswax and I mean, it's probably processed, but still.
I'll have to give it a go when I
You'll have to test that.
Yeah, and I think it's just even things like color. I mean, color is subjective. There are things that are calming and there are things that are not. There are ways to bounce.
Psychology around it.
Yeah, there's ways to
Yeah.
bounce light off the walls or have it absorb. But it's knowing yourself, what you're drawn to, because you might have
Mm.
had an experience with a color that is quite negative. So it's quite nuanced. So I think just getting familiar with how you feel. And I think when looking at all of the materials, all of the choices that you have, it's sitting with it and going, how do I feel when I look at all of these things? Do I feel well, first, actually, step one is, how do I want to feel in my finished
Yeah.
home?
Yeah.
And then looking at the styles that you're pinning on Pinterest or the materials that you're picking up or your magazine clippings and grouping them together and then sitting with it quietly and thinking, how do I feel in my body? How do I feel in my mind when I look at this package of inspiration? And then go to the next one, or maybe like go for a little walk in the garden and
Yeah.
clear your mind.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you smell coffee, when
Coffee and yeah,
you're
I
tasting
love that.
or
Taste
perfumes or whatever it
palatable.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, cleanse your palate.
Yeah.
And just sit with it and see how you feel, and try and make decisions a little bit more from cues from your body and your own intuition, and trust that a little bit more,
Oh,
because you won't achieve the feeling that you want if you're not feeling into the inspiration and the materials and stuff like that. So
because
that's a
it's
simple
gonna
way.
resonate with you a lot more as opposed to going with trends or whatever is, style that's out at the moment
Yeah,
versus using your own ability to feel into what makes you happy versus what outside exterior things are telling you, dictating to you what is right for your home. So
exactly. Yeah.
I love that. That's an amazing answer. Thank you so much. And I learned ways so much about paint and beeswax. Oh my God,
I'll
could
think of
talk
all
to
these
you for
other things
hours.
afterwards and be like, why didn't I talk
No,
about
that was
this?
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, so rapid fire. Are you ready for
Yes,
rapid fire? All right.
I hope so. Yep.
So, being the magazine Creating the Muse, and you being the amazing feature for this November issue, what does Creating the Muse mean to you out of curiosity?
Oh, I think for me, it's creating space and creating quiet to allow the muse to come up within me. So
Mm,
rather than like switching off everything external, I think play is a really important piece of that as well. And just kind of stepping out of my own thoughts and my own head, and yeah, just allowing space, which is something that I'm trying to do a little bit more. Um,
same.
yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I mean, it can come through without it, but I think the real quality comes from um, allowing space, and that's when inspiration can come through. So yeah, for me, it feels like creating the muse. The muse feels like something that's within you that you have to allow space. You have to open the door and make it feel safe to
Yeah.
let her come up
For you
and
to express
out
yourself. Yeah.
and give her gifts. So
Oh, I love that so much because I think it's a bit of an enigma because like in back in the day, it was Renaissance paintings and stuff like that. They found a muse which was external to paint something, a beautiful woman that could kind of
yeah,
inspire that creativity. But I guess with creating the muse, as you've just so beautifully provided example of, it's actually finding and giving the space within you to hear the pings of what creativity, but it's finding the space and getting out of the hustle but bustle and the perfectionism and just getting
yeah,
out to nature and, as you said, grounding. And then they
yeah,
just come in instead of
yeah.
forcing it. So,
I think
yeah.
it's showing respect to it as well,
Oh, I
and
love
saying
that. Showing respect to it.
don't don't push her around. You know, she
Yeah.
doesn't
Don't
bully
try and
you.
don't push through that wall, as we were saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm giving this advice that I don't take myself. I'm trying. I'm trying my best.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
externalizing it a little bit and imagining it as you know, a person within you that is part of you, and showing it the respect that no, you're not coming out, or she won't come out, or he won't come out, or
Don't
they
come
won't
out
come
and
out
play. Yeah.
until you give the respect of space and say, okay, I'm letting you take over.
Mm.
I'm stepping away. My mind is stepping away, and let's see what comes through, because I have never solved, I've tried to force the solution to a problem many, many, many times. And it's never until you walk away. And I'm like, I could have walked away 3 hours ago, because as
Yeah.
soon as you do and you get in the shower, like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Drops in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. Ah,
Yeah.
great answer. Now, this is a tricky question because I know if you're a book lover like me, and if you put me on the spot and asked me what was one book, I'd be like, "Are you mad?" But I have to ask because I love doing this part because then I get to score awesome book
Yes.
ideas. So, what is your all-time favorite book that has had significant impact on you?
There's a lot of pressure in that question.
There is.
All-time favorite. I don't have all-time favorites because I change my mind all the time. So I'm a little
Yeah.
fluid with what my favorites are. I think in terms of the biggest impact, it would, and it feels corny to say so, but whatever, it is what it is. It was probably uh, 10 to 15 years ago, the book A New Earth by Eckhart
Oh,
Tolle.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, I think that had a big impact. I
Yeah.
picked
Yeah.
it up at the
At that
right
time.
time, and it was the first time I was able to kind of get the concept of the ego, and that that is a separate thing to me, and being able to put it aside. That was really eye-opening for me, and I can see how that, you know, has impacts. Even like what we were just talking about with the muse, it's kind of that concept of, oh no,
Mm.
these aspects of me are not all me. When you take all the layers away from all of us, like underneath it all, we're all one, you know. But
Mm.
it's being able to separate those layers and not heavily identify with it, which I still do, but that it's still in
Yeah,
my
yeah.
mind. It was
It's
that
just nice
moment
to
of,
pop in.
oh, and I felt such a relief from the anxiety I was feeling in that moment. So that's probably the biggest impact. In terms of what I'm reading now, I'd like to say that I read novels, but I don't. Um, I'm reading a book at the moment, which I've got it here. That's why I'm looking over weirdly. Healing Spaces.
Oh, oh, so in alignment to you.
Yeah, the science of place and well-being.
Oh,
But I've only got like this tiny way through because I get so excited when I read it. Like I was on the plane
you want
reading
to
it, I'm like
savor it.
taking notes in my phone and. So it's almost like I find it hard to pick it up because I get so excited that it's like it takes a lot of energy, which is a very strange
You
way
want
to
to
say that. I
invest
really
in
like
it.
that book. And besides that, I think just like lots of visual books,
Of
and
course. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Completely.
yeah.
And the next question is, what is one best investment that you've made for yourself or on yourself?
Do I have to pick one?
Grab
I
it,
would
grab
say
it.
definitely doing the diploma of building design
Of
at
course.
for,
Yeah, yeah.
in building design drafting, 100%, and taking the time away from working. Um, that was a big investment, but it
Mm.
allowed me space to also work on myself. So I think that in conjunction with my psychologist, who I still go to just because I really enjoy the process of talking things out.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, I would say 100%. There weren't cheap things, but the biggest impact.
That's amazing. I love that. And I love that you said your psychologist as well. Like that's so important. And
Mm.
just having somebody to witness you and hear your thoughts is just so powerful in itself
Yeah.
instead of always being in your head and not getting it.
Yes.
Because sometimes if you can't articulate it, or I think once you even hear yourself speaking to somebody about your problems, then you can actually hear it and go, ah, and work it
Yeah,
out yourself. So
that's
yeah,
right. And just
yeah,
having someone that has no bias, that you feel
of
safe, you can
course.
say whatever you want,
No
and it's not going
emotional
to be repeated,
attachment.
and you don't have to burden anybody else with it.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
so true. I
you
love
just kind
that.
of offload. I wonder how they get rid of all
A
of that.
decompress. Yeah, they must have the most exceptional boundaries.
Yeah, but that's
Because
what my friend wants. So
I love that. Oh, Lisa, it has been such a delight to actually speak to you. I've loved every aspect of this conversation. So many amazing gems, and you're just such a talented human being, like and such a multifaceted. Like I just love that you just thread human and being human and nature and everything into everything that you do, and you just went like there's just such a savoring aspect to you about everything that you look at, you touch, you feel. So it's been such an honor to have this conversation. So I have to ask for people listening, where can they find you?
um I'm a little bit elusive at the moment. So Instagram, just Elise Sorge is probably the best place. I've been a bit I haven't been posting very much lately, but I'm hoping to pick that up a little bit more. My website is still a splash page that is coming whenever I have space, but
Yeah, yeah. The
I'm
time
not in
will
a rush.
come when it's time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm really just in a place at the moment of just kind of getting back to basics of what it is that I really love and enjoy. And I'm working also in the sustainability space for the built environment. So I've got that going on too. But yeah, I think I'll just gradually build up again. And yeah, Instagram would be the best place. And if anyone has questions, feel free to send a message.
amazing.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you so much. And thank you for entrusting me to tell your story and putting you back out there. It
Yes,
sounds like you've been like, uh,
hibernating.
yeah,
It's that cocooning, we'll call it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
growing and expanding and coming, yeah, going to come out for
yeah.
you.
And just
Yeah,
not rushing. Just not
Oh
rushing.
God, yes. Oh yes, we need more of that medicine.
Yeah.
All right, lovely. Thank you again.
Thank you so
Such a
much.
joy. And yeah, talk to you soon.
Hey,
Okay, bye.
bye.